thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Just read the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us as we invite you to be a part of our ongoing discussion here on Talk Today. We're going to be joined by attorney at law, J. Samuel Jackson.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us as we invite you to be a part of the discussion here on this truly terrific Tuesday's edition of Talk Today. As we welcome to our studio, sort of via a virtual presence of the excellent company of attorney at law, J. Samuel Jackson. My good friend, Mr. Jackson. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Thanks for having me on. I simply wanted to come on and share my perspective. I've seen a lot of discussion recently about the law and the legal and constitutional implications of what we term here as the lockdown. And for whatever it's worth, to see if I can explain, because it troubles me to see that every discussion along the lines of the legal implications of what the government is doing nowadays turns into a discussion about what's right, what's wrong in terms of the lockdown. As regards the methods used by government to implement safety standards along the lines of what is being done internationally, etc. Mm-hmm. So, from my perspective, as a lawyer, what troubles me is that as we all know, one of the cornerstones of democracy itself is the ability to speak freely in any society. And from the outset, we have been told that, any person spreading fake news, which I don't need to tell anyone, has a very, very wide definition these days, will be sought out and prosecuted as such. Now, I'm not one to engage in that kind of rhetoric. Anyhow, I try to research everything that, before I speak, and that's what I've done. And so my contribution today is purely from a legal perspective, for whatever it's worth. And we need to consider that whilst this is truly unprecedented, this lockdown that we're in globally, at least most countries, we have never seen anything of its kind before. And I believe it baffles and troubles us all, how we've gotten here. We need to figure out a way to navigate these trying times without displacing or supplanting or shutting out totally those norms of um, or normal features of a democratic society, including the right to speak freely and to move freely.
Yeah.
That would be the focus of my initial discussion in this regard, because seeing a Compass article written by two of my learned colleagues, which goes some ways to explaining how the Constitution works from their perspective, and the article, I believe, in my humble opinion, is overall goes a long way to explaining the relevant constitutional provisions, but there are some aspects of it that I think that needs further explaining. Let me put it that way. No,
Okay.
I'm at your disposal, Mr. Ebanks. You tell me what you think the public wants to hear, because I have no way of really knowing that. Despite what
Thank
I
you.
said.
Yeah, but thank you not just for the courage and the conviction, but the willingness and the element of public service and sharing your intellect and insight as a legal practitioner here. Because as you've shared, it isn't that we, and that in the presence of me hosting the show, being inundated daily with the concerns relative to health, the societal, the economic implications, but to the sort of unskilled, untrained legal mind, the questions relative to freedoms and movements, the precedents that could be emanating, and the like. And we're reminded, in the words of George Orwell, during times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act.
Indeed.
So whether we talk about fake news or the thing, where is it that a person's right to move freely and justifiably, to be able to speak, to ask questions, to seek accountability, and to perhaps demand information from authorities, elected or appointed, in a civil democratic society are necessary. So I must really, publicly say thanks to you for sharing with us, because without people like you, your acumen, your courage and conviction, many of us would be in a predicament.
I mean, I do have a massive investment in terms of time and effort and everything else in the Cayman community. Besides being a lawyer, I am a member of the society. I take that very seriously. I take my responsibility, a responsibility of knowledge very seriously, and that I think that when I see things, bad things happen when good people don't speak up. It's the sort of the mantra here. And what we don't want to do is, for the sake of expediency, convenience, or even political machinations, we implement measures. Perhaps the measures themselves are not disproportionate. Not all of them are, in my humble opinion, but we have to go about them the proper way. And I'll come to discuss that later on when I talk about what England has done through its Public Health Act or regulations, and we can do a comparison with the provisions of that with Cayman and discuss things like proportionality. But just for of setting the background, what we're talking about here is, in the Cayman setting, we have a constitution, thanks in no small part to the gentleman who is now the premier, which came into effect in 2009. That constitution has a Bill of Rights, which are guaranteed rights. Those rights are sacrosanct. They should not be offended or breached, except in accordance with specific exemptions contained in those provisions that give us those rights in the first place. So this is a blueprint of all things governance, so to speak, for Cayman. It dictates. There's some confusion. I've seen this in the press. There's some confusion about whether the courts can dictate what the legislative assembly can do. No, it generally cannot, because this Constitution enshrines the doctrine of separation of powers, and without getting into all of the legal implications of that, because that could take us all day. The simple fact is, the courts are no more entitled to interfere with the legislative process than the legislative process is to interfere with the courts. The legislative process gives us laws to follow, and it is the court's job to interpret them. But part of that job of interpreting those laws is to see whether they are in compliance with the Constitution, because the Constitution governs the Legislative Assembly. It does, because we have constitutional supremacy here, not parliamentary supremacy like they have in the UK. And what we have to understand is that any law that is passed must be in accordance with, must resonate with, must reflect the spirit and intent of the Bill of Rights in our Constitution. Now, the relevant one here is Section 13, which provides that no person shall be hindered by government in the enjoyment of his or her freedom of movement. That is to say, the right to move freely throughout the islands, the right to reside in any part of the Cayman Islands, the right to enter the Cayman Islands, the right to leave the Cayman Islands, and immunity from expulsion from the Cayman Islands. First of all, this applies to all persons, not just citizens.
Yeah.
That's an important thing to note. So everyone who finds themselves resident or present in this country enjoys those rights, as with all of the other rights under the Constitution. Now, subsection 2 of that provision says, nothing in this law, in any law, or done under its authority shall be held to contravene this section to the extent that the law in question makes provision for the imposition of restrictions on the movement or residence within the Cayman Islands, to leave the Cayman Islands, etc., that are reasonably justifiable in a democratic society in the interest of, among other things, public safety or public health. So we see right away that there can be exemptions. This is what the Compass article quite rightly said. There can be exemptions or circumstances which permit laws to be passed, right? And we'll come back to discuss that, which place restrictions on the right to freedom of movement in this country. And they have to be done in a proper manner, and they have to be defensible in terms of they need to be reasonably justifiable in a democratic society. What does that term mean? Well, I'm sure the government will pray and aid the fact that, well, we are doing more or less what everyone else is doing in other democratic societies. I'm not satisfied that is entirely the case, but just for now, assume that is the case. Does that meet the bar? Does that then automatically qualify what we have done as being reasonably justifiable in a democratic society?
Okay. Well, could we pick that up then? I don't want to, put you off the train of thought, but
in the law.
Yeah, let's pause for this quick short break, and we come back, pick it up, and share with us. Hopefully, we can, get through the breaks, without too much. But join us when we come back and get more of your insight. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
International Lighting Eds Plaza, North Songway, is now open for delivery Monday to Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. In addition to light fixtures, ceiling fans, rugs, sheet sets, and household items, International Lighting now has a selection of masks, alcohol, and gloves for sale. For delivery, please call 945-7121, 916-8211, 916-3553, or 949-5141.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Stay home. Leave Granny alone. Darling child, I mean, we can't be visiting our old people because they're more compromised. We gotta keep them safe. Anna, got it now? If Anna want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Cayman kind.
Shopping online and picking up your purchases are now available at A.L. Thompson's. We offer goods that you need now for your home and yard. Visit our website for details and register to shop. Currently, we sell only the items that are on the website, but we'll add products regularly and frequently to meet your needs. You could pay for your order by debit card, credit card, and store accounts, and then can drive in and pick up your purchases. We hope that you will enjoy shopping online at althompson.com. Please remain healthy and safe.
Join us every evening at 6:59 p.m. for the Time Check Salute in Cayman kind style
With the blowing of the conch shell.
as the Cayman Islands community extends their appreciation to all of the frontline staff who are working to keep our islands safe and functioning during these challenging times.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you for joining us as we invite you to be a part of our discussion. The phone lines are open, of course. You can call the toll-free line at 1-800-534-8255, and certainly invite you to share with us as we're honored that Attorney at Law J. Samuel Jackson would, share with us his expertise and give us the legal perspective. So, Sammy, as you were sharing, again, sorry that we paused to take the break, but many people are concerned. On one hand, I think normally we are civilized, law-abiding people who want to ensure that we're compliant. But there are growing concerns, not just from what you hear in the media, from the questions at the press briefings. And for those who are listening, there is no press briefing today. But just general conversation that, well, is this a good thing for us to be doing for so long? Is it legal? Does the government have the authority? Should they have the authority? What it means for the possible precedent going forward? And people are generally just asking. So, we certainly appreciate you being so courageous and helping us understand.
Well, that's part of the reason. That's part of what motivated me to do this. To come on and speak about this, because what isn't known generally is that as lawyers, those of the members of the public who are lawyers will understand this. As lawyers, we are the frontline defenders of the rights of individuals, right? Now, I don't practice in the courts much anymore at all. I don't do constitutional actions. I've been forced to defend myself, and I will be in that regard, dealing with that myself in due course. But that's a whole other discussion for another day. But the truth is, we are the people who get the calls, as I have gotten many calls recently from the strangest of people, and I say that because some included close friends, for the want of a better word, of the government, who are very concerned about, the economic fallout, the encroachment on their rights and all that, and obviously, because they enjoy a legally privileged relationship with me, that is to say, I can't discuss the details of what they discuss with anyone else. They feel much freer to discuss their concerns with me than they would ever by an anonymous blog on one of the online newspapers. Now, I've heard many complaints recently from people from all walks of life that this lockdown is just too much for them to deal with, right? There are people who are seeking legal advice from not just myself but colleagues about what to do about it, whether they should file a constitutional petition, and we've seen, those sorts of things mentioned obliquely in the press, and we've heard some frustration from the government side that these lawyers. The implication being that these lawyers are all concerned about law and the government's responsibility to be concerned about the people. Well, the simple fact is that is not correct at all. Put things in perspective. We are the folks who often have to defend the public against all sorts of oppressive and obtrusive action by the government. That is part of the job of the legal profession. And we oftentimes know much more than the government knows about what that silent majority, you keep hearing that term, that is something I've warned past governments about, and they didn't listen, and it manifested itself in terms of an election result. I say to the government, beware the silent majority. There are people here, and this is the other thing that concerns me, the other facet of it is, there are folks who are here on permits, some are permanent residents, and I'm talking about professionals in the medical field in particular, which is what concerned me, and I heard that complaint today, right? Who are waiting for the first sign of lifting of this lockdown so that they can go home, or the first flight out of here. They're going to pack up and leave. If that starts, and this is not scaremongering, this is just my concerns. I have no way of knowing whether this is the general consensus or not. But if it is, it's something we should keep an eye on, right? Because if you trade too harshly on people's rights, right, to the point where they feel, well, I didn't sign up to be, living in a microcosm of communist China. I signed up to come to the Cayman Islands. Everybody told me it was paradise. Paradise. I paid the price because it's obviously costly to live here, and I, established myself. I made investments or whatever, and all of a sudden it seems to me that the government has become a bit too dictatorial. So I'm going back to where I came from, and the worst part is, Green, that I see a lot of encouragement in that regard. There are a lot of Caymanians, and look, you don't get any more Caymanian than us, right? We've been here forever, slapping mosquitoes and all that. This is where we're born. But the simple truth is, some of our folks don't know what's good for themselves, in that they say things, unfortunately. Emotions are high now. People are sensitized to things that they normally would let slide. And they say things like, if you don't like it here, go home. That is not a message that you want to convey publicly in Cayman, because I can tell you, if that happens, if a large majority of our professionals pack up and go home, the expats, those, horrible people, that a lot of people like to paint them that way, which I can't tell you how that bothers me, right? Yeah. Because the truth is, at some point in time, we were all expats, whether we came here 300 years ago or 30 years ago or 3 weeks ago. We're all people, and you don't have the ability to tell people who have made an investment here, who have followed all the laws that we have put in place through the ordinary parliamentary process. They qualify. As far as we know, we are required to presume that what ought to have been done was done. But they must go home if they don't like it here. That's certainly not a mantra that I would promote. I don't want us to have a brain drain or a mass exodus of professionals, particularly in the medical field. That would be disastrous for us, because I don't think we've seen and I'm no expert, but I don't think we've seen the end of this virus, and I don't think personally don't think we'll eradicate it anytime soon, right? All indications are we won't. So we're going to be living with this for a while. We continue with that sort of rhetoric, we continue making those kinds of statements, then we're going to offend people who, by the way, also have rights under the same constitution that we Caymanians need rights under.
Because it applies to all, right? Yeah.
Now, having said that, right, we were talking about what's reasonable, justifiable in a democratic society. Now, I'm not one who's going to get into what the European Court of Justice. I don't think that's even necessary, right? There's a lot of discussion about that. Suffice it to say that I'd prefer to rely on our local jurisprudence rather than look abroad, because they have a different culture, different perspective on many, many things, right?
Right. Now, before I ask you to delve into that, right, the local jurisprudence, what UK and stuff, could we go to the phones and join this other caller, invite this caller, we have a call online, and let's just weigh in. Let's do that. We're talking to Attorney at Law, J. Samuel Jackson. Well, let's go to our phones. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Sterling. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, good, and good afternoon to Mr. Jackson.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I am just, well, I want to call yesterday, but Sterling wasn't on yesterday, so I think I could probably throw my 2 cents in regards to, we were talking about the people and the virus and so forth and so forth. Sterling, I was in town yesterday, and from Newlands to Georgetown to Walker's Road, there was no distance between these people. Social distance. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. What I have seen yesterday, people when it's their day to come out, they're like they just came out of a cage, and they're so glad to see her and Jack and Mary that they all just get into one bunch and start holding a conversation and forgetting that we're told to do a social distance, when we're out here and there. Um, from what I can gather, and I feel that if and when this island do open back up, we haven't seen the effect of this virus yet. I believe to have a breakout, that we're gonna get a shock of our lives because people are not listening and they're not trying to listen and understand and realize what the consequences are of this virus. This thing is real. And America's there opening here and there. The people want America open up. So all I gotta say is that if we're gonna go and open just because when people here say we need to open because we're here to do business and so forth. Everybody wants to do business. Everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to survive. But I can tell you one thing, Sterling. Since you have been closed down, has anyone died of the lockdown? I don't think so. I haven't heard of anyone died of the lockdown, of starvation, or the virus. You know what I mean? Can you hear me, Sterling?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Listening.
You
Listening.
know, so I mean, if they want Cayman to become the New York, well, I asked Mr. Premier, don't let his guards down to nobody until he feels that we are in a position and we must not take right now and what's happening now for granted because we're looking good. But I got a strong belief if we can learn social distance right now and learn to understand the rights and the wrongs of what to do and what not to do, and when we all come up and start gathering up, we're going to see really what the virus looks like in the Cayman Islands and who's dead and who's not dead. And I tell you one thing, I'm scared as chicken, Sterling. I'm going to let you go. But I just want to say in regards to
Yeah.
Mr.
Before you go, if you'd allow me to ask, because I think like you, we all value life and we believe that life should be that thing that we put first. And like the Honorable Premier has said, the ethos of the country is, life first. Business can be, down the chain. But if I may ask, just if you would allow me, respectful to ask, the Honorable Premier said that using construction as an example, he shared at the press briefing that the nature of construction work is that people work sometimes in a very, very close proximity to one another. And with what you're sharing, he equally said they'll work with each other, they'll go back, and then their families, they'll go into the wider community, the supermarkets, and the like. Do you think your opinion, now, if you wish to share it? Do you think that in one breath, saying that the life is so valuable that we could possibly undermine whatever we're trying to achieve by pushing out to open up? We've done the mobile car washes. We've done the garden places. Now we'll do construction in a phased approach, as the premier shared, in short order. Could that be pushing us to a point to where you say we might cause the loss of life? So is the word of saying life, but the action of opening up some of these areas being sort of counterproductive?
Sterling, No disrespect to the construction. I know he's feeling it out, but I got a strong belief, no disrespect to anyone, but that construction is going to show us who we are when it comes to this virus. It's going to show us who we are. You hear me? And no disrespect. I'm not wishing it, and I pray it never happens. But the communication of working together and got to talk and so forth. Like yesterday, I saw the NRA walking up here on the Newlands bypass, and they were pretty close. Pretty close. I saw them down by the airport. They was pretty close. They was in the seats of distance that it's supposed to be, but it's going to be difficult to keep construction guys 6 feet apart from each other on a job. And 95% of the time, they're not going to want to wear that mask because the first thing I say, it's too hot and I can't breathe, and you're going to find all kinds of excuses. But all I just want to say, Sally, please don't let me go. Please hold on me one more minute, please. We got to be careful because, like I say, it ain't finished yet. And all that the government is doing to try to protect us, if we want to live, we need to abide by rules and regulations. If we don't want to live, well, you just come on and say, well, Mr. Premier, I don't want to live. Send me down to the job where I can get the virus and I can die within 24 hours. Because if we open up the way that everybody wants this island open up, we're going to be a little New York. We're going to be a little New York. And I want to make a comment to that gentleman there with you. Mr. Spreety's name is Sam. What's the name again, sir?
Samuel Jackson.
Mr. Jackson. No disrespect to you. I don't think I know you. You probably don't know me, but it's okay. I just want to say that I listened to some part of your conversation in regards to saying to the people who is here to leave if you don't want whatever. Well, I just want to say that I am 63 years old, and I know our forefathers built this island, and we have come a long way. We have had a lot of people came here and helped build the island too. But the fact of the matter within me, if somebody come here and they're not happy here, and even don't care how many businesses they have, they're not comfortable here. They leave their country to come to do better because they heard of the Cayman Islands this and the Cayman Islands that. Paradise, we gone now to Cayman time. So I may not come across to you, we want me to come across to you, but these kind of things just kind of tickle me, and I guess a little bit better the shape to the fact of the matter. But nobody is anywhere in the world that if they want to move, they can move. Nobody can't hold them down from moving. And I just want to say we got all types of business here in the island. And the way that the Premier was attacked with these lawyers, so forth just the other day, I think that was so disrespectful to our Constitution, our flag, our Cayman Island, or everything. But I'm not getting that because then he will solve that problem. But all I have to say is that we don't have anyone here holding down that they can't leave when they want to. And when we say, if you don't like it here, leave, sir, let me tell you something. I don't know how old you are, and I know you have seen people came here and got what they want, and they left and never came back. And people are still coming to get what they want, and when they get it, they are gone. They don't want Cayman. They want what they can accomplish, even if they leave a building here. I met a gentleman just about 2 years ago. He had a building down on Main Street. He came to sell it. He said, his first time back here, he must have over 30-odd years. Imagine a gentleman has a building here for what, 30-odd years, and he never been back to the Cayman Island, but now he comes to sell it. That is how much interest and respect they got for my Cayman Island. I'm not jobbing on you, sir. I'm not trying to disrespect you or anything in that category. But all I want to say that we, the people of this island, which is a few Caymanians left, and the few that left, they are so coward, they don't have no backbone, and they can't stand up, and when somebody come and take away from them as a foreigner, they want to get all quiet and carry like an idiot and say the government did it. We, the people, want to stand up for our own country. And I just want to say, anybody come to this country, they are free to leave whenever they're ready. They can't share the building with them, but they can leave anytime they want. I thank you guys for listening to me. You all have a great one.
Thanks, Mom. Thanks very much. And Mr. Jackson, we've got some breaks to take. Maybe we'll mull it over and get back into it after. All right, stay tuned.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal, and never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Attention all blood donors, we need a pint from you. Join us at the National Blood Bank this Thursday, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. The off-campus location at the Red Cross building across from the Farmers Market. Spend 15 minutes, give your pint, and save 3 lives. Curfew day not your day? Not a problem. Visit giveblood.ky, request your letter, and it will be emailed to you. The National Blood Bank Auxiliary location at the Red Cross building, compliments of the Cayman Islands Red Cross. Community partners are Rotary Club Central, Generali Health Insurance, Car City Fosters Group, and the Cayman Blood Donor Service. Remember, when blood is needed, nothing else will do. This message is courtesy of the Rotary Club Central, supporting the National Blood Bank since 1999. Rotary, connecting the world.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Puritan Cleaners.
We are open. Visit Puritan Cleaners drive-through off Eastern Avenue, 8 a.m. till 3 p.m., Monday to Saturday. Our Elgin Avenue and Savannah locations will remain closed. However, your items can easily be transferred to Eastern Avenue. Just call us at 949-7104. That's 949-7104 with your request. Puritan Cleaners. You feel good when you look good.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
And good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And again, thanks to Attorney at Law, J. Samuel Jackson, for sharing his legal perspective. Hey, thanks again, man. Thank you for being with us. And as we were sharing, glad to hear from you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dwayne. I suppose I should start by responding to what the lady said. And I absolutely respect her right to express her own views. I wish more of my people would do that. And so we can have a discussion. We don't have to agree, but we should have discussions, and we should use that constructively to get to some sort of consensus if we differ on important aspects of life. All of that is part of a healthy democratic society, and I understand as well, right, that fear is the single most powerful motivator, right? That's what Niccolo Machiavelli wrote about. You can use that, and this is what bothers me about what I'm seeing. This is just from a personal perspective. Now, I'm sorry I had to segue into this, but to respond to what the lady said, there is absolutely nothing to tell us that what we have done has reduced substantially the spread of the virus. We don't know. We haven't tested enough people yet. We haven't done any antibody testing. We don't know. That's right. And for that reason, to some extent, the restrictions are justifiable. I'm not here to question, as a matter of policy, what the government has decided to do, but how it has arrived at where we're at, and the process employed by the government, I believe, is questionable and should be challenged. That's part of being involved in a healthy democracy too. Any any person, particularly lawyers who don't have a healthy skepticism for anything the government does, will become so complacent that governments will tend to do what they want to do for the sake of political expediency, convenience, or whatever. I'm not saying that is what has happened. I'm just making a general observation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the basis upon which I thought I'd come and share my perspective from a lawyer's standpoint on what has been discussed recently in the press about constitutional rights. Now, getting back to that topic, right? So we see that restrictions can be placed on a right or guaranteed right of freedom to move around the country, but they have to be done in a way that is reasonably justifiable in a democratic society. We also have Section 19 of the Bill of Rights, which guarantees that all decisions and acts of public officials must be lawful, rational, proportionate, and procedurally fair. Other countries recognize, and I'll give you a perfect example of that is when I'm looking at the health protection coronavirus restrictions English regulation 2020, which was passed in England in March. And the preamble to that document says, the Secretary of State considers that restrictions and requirements imposed by these regulations are proportionate to what they seek to achieve, which is public health response to the threat. Proportionality is all about balance, right? Making sure that what you're doing actually can be justified. So that goes to define what is reasonably justifiable in a democratic society. What we have seen is that we've had, for example, a curfew imposed under Section 49 of the police law. Now, the police law itself, I don't believe that any effort was made since the advent of the Constitution to bring that in line with the Constitution, because there are some valid concerns expressed about the curfew itself and the way it was gone about. The most glaring one is Section 49.6 says that no curfew shall endure for more than 48 hours.
So it means should last longer.
Yeah, exactly. So my understanding is that the way that this has been taken care of, that it's renewed every 48 hours, but does not clearly offend the express intent of the provision. If you can get around a provision of law by just renewing, if a law says this is as long as this state of affairs should exist, and you get around that by just renewing it, it doesn't that as an act of illegitimacy, unlawfulness? I think so. Now, that is not to say that we shouldn't have lockdown measures. We should. But the way the government has gone about this by issuing edicts in the form of curfews with conditions, that's the other thing that Section 49 does not provide for. This concept of a hard curfew or soft curfew, that doesn't exist in law, right? And they have put out regulations under the public health law, but they deal with specifying things like exempted persons. There's like 2 or 3 pages on that, restrictions on certain activities and operations, etc. But they didn't see fit to create temporary provisions which would include a restrictions on movement of people that would be in accordance with both Section 19 and Section 13 of the Bill of Rights. Why did they do that? They were in Parliament for a couple of weeks back. Why not promulgate proper legislation then to deal with this thing? Why let the Commissioner of Police exercise this draconian thing? Because people need to understand what a curfew is about. Curfews are reserved for the most extreme circumstances where you have uprisings in the country and that sort of thing, right? And you need to look no further than Section 49, distinguishing between a curfew and a cordon. But without getting into that, curfews, by law, by the police law itself, the very provision that they've activated says very cleanly it shouldn't last for longer than 48 hours. Now, why haven't we taken care of that problem? Why haven't we?
Okay.
Because that's part of the wider problem as I see it.
Okay. I'm so sorry that with these breaks we take sometimes interject into our conversation, but respectfully, please don't lose our train of thought. Let's take this and maybe we'll pick it up. We'll remember what we're talking about. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For
Today's biggest news. Access.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
The Premier says in the coming weeks, government will review some of the more restrictive aspects of the COVID-19 suppression efforts. One of the things government will consider the next time around is the continued necessity of the hard curfew on Sundays. The Premier says they are also reviewing the need for the public beach ban on Grand Cayman and what releases could take place there. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, the U.S.'s top infectious diseases doctor has warned senators the virus will spread if the country opens up too soon. Dr. Anthony Fauci said if federal guidelines to reopen are not followed, little spikes will become outbreaks. He also said the real U.S. death toll is probably higher than the official figure of 80,000. And Russia has confirmed 232,000 cases of coronavirus, the second highest toll in the world after the U.S. In the last 24 hours, the country has reported 10,899 infections. The 10th consecutive day, that number has been above 10,000. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
For nearly 20 years, King Sports Center has been the heart of the Cayman fitness and wellness community in order to ensure the welfare of temporarily closed until further notified by the Cayman Islands government that it is safe to reopen. During these trying times, we encourage everyone to maintain a healthy lifestyle, mind, body, and soul. We look forward to continuing providing you with world-class service in the very near future. Remain strong and continue to show the world the power of Cayman unity. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Has being quarantined at home have you looking at your living space differently? Well, Tomlinson Furniture is now offering free island-wide deliveries and phone consultations to help you design a comfortable living space. For inspiration and ideas, browse the Tomlinson Furniture and Mattress Gallery Facebook page, Tomlinson Furniture Cayman on Instagram, or website at tomlinsonfurniture.ky. Open from 9:30 a.m. for phone consultations and orders. Call 949-5383. Tomlinson Furniture and the Mattress Gallery. Free delivery island-wide.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Stay at home. Stay home. No gad about it. Stay your backside home. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Cayman kind.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks publicly to Ms. Susan for putting up with me. We'll get there at some point. Anyway, Attorney at Law J. Samuel Jackson joins us and certainly appreciate his legal perspective. Samuel, thanks very much, man, and hopefully we can keep the conversation flowing. But just prior to the break, you were sharing. Thank you again for resuming.
Thanks, Blaine. It's difficult to distill this down into simple terms so that the public can digest it fully. I've spent quite a bit of time looking at this because, quite frankly, I'm stuck at home anyhow. So I thought I would look at these things and see whether I could make sense of it, because I instinctively knew there was something wrong with a scenario where the Commissioner of Police continues to have absolute powers of control over the populace. That is the hallmark, by definition, of a police state. Now, worse yet, if it is the way that it is portrayed to be, that it is the head of the political directorate, the head of cabinet, the premier, who is dictating to the Commissioner of Police what conditions, even though there's no law permitting conditions to be placed on curfew, in order to achieve an objective that could easily and properly be achieved otherwise by proper legislation, but through a parliamentary process where people get to hear what their respective representatives are saying about this and what their ideas are on this. What we have here is a small dictatorial regime where it looks very much like, and I don't know what process they employ to make decisions about what particular measures to put in place. And I'm not saying they're all bad. Many of them are very practical. Many of them have are sound, sensible measures. But we got to make sure they're balanced. I'll give you the perfect example. The supermarkets are a necessary, quote unquote, evil, because we all have to eat. The supermarkets present themselves logically, just using common sense, as the most virulent form of transmission or forum for transmission of disease, because you have hundreds of folks going into each supermarket every day. They touch things, they pick up fruits, they pick up tins, they pick up bags, whatever. They touch them with their hands, and then they go on, and somebody else comes along and does the same thing, and so on and so forth. They give it to the cashier does the same thing. We've seen that happen. What has happened is one or two folks on the front line at the supermarkets were infected. The point being that there is little we can do except implement reasonable, balanced measures to make sure that we mitigate as much as possible. And I think the government has done a good job with that. The implementation of the use of masks, I think that's a good thing. Anything they can do to make sure that people maintain distances, and I'm all for that. I don't want anyone to get the impression that I'm saying let's just fling the floodgates open the island up and kill everybody, because that is not what I'm proposing. That's not what I believe in, and I'm not saying that everything that has been done is bad. What I'm looking at is the legal process. That's what I want to focus on today.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. This is not just, to engage in academia and say, oh, well, this is the law, we should be followed to the letter, etc. There are real implications here, because we have seen society throughout history, when you give an inch, a bit, just a small amount of liberty up to gain a little bit of security, as Thomas Jefferson said, you deserve to lose both, right? And that might sound harsh, but the reality is, when we have a society where, for a long, extended period of time, we have the police dictating what we can do on a daily basis, that's not what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to observe and identify criminality and go after it and deal with it, arrest whoever they need to arrest, charge whoever, and let the justice system, prosecutorial services, etc., put it before the courts, and we have a process for that too. But what we have there now is something that, and we're not alone in this, we have many supposedly democratic societies are struggling, and I believe there's going to be many struggles in that regard.
Right.
Citizens, revolting at the idea that the police are in control of their lives. Therein lies the problem, right?
Yeah. I want to ask you to expound. Yeah. Allow me to interject because I'm intrigued to hear what you share. But got a couple of callers waiting. Let's see where their thought process lies and where it takes us. Respectfully, let's go to our phones. Good afternoon and welcome.
Hello?
Hi, good afternoon.
Yes, Sterling. A couple of comments for Sammy and your listeners that I have today. We've all heard the Premier in his briefings talk about the ethos of the islands and protecting the elderly and the vulnerable. And that's very understandable, and I don't think you'd find many people who disagree with that.
Indeed.
However, what would be wrong with actually quarantining or taking care of those elderly and ensuring that they are in a safe environment away from the public? You could even have some of the civil servants that are being paid and not doing anything, bring them food, and let's take care of our elderly and the vulnerable, but let the other aspects of society open up slowly and build what they call herd immunity.
Right.
So another comment I have about people getting out.
We're losing you, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir?
Hello, are you still there?
Yeah, another comment you had and then we lost you after that.
Another comment I have is about concerns that people have about letting out a bunch of workers in the construction industry. Well, as I see today, we've already let out a lot of people. There are a lot more people on the roads. The other thing I'd like to say is that construction workers, probably 60 to 75% of our foreign construction labor force, live in high-density areas, sharing laundry rooms, kitchens, bathrooms, and everything else. And now they're sitting around all day long in those cramped areas, playing dominoes with each other, and really not being a safe distance just by the nature of their accommodations.
Yep.
They would be safer on construction sites working in the heat and humidity and have more distance from themselves than they do living where they're living now.
But presumably they'll be crossing households. I hear what you're sharing, but then it talked about, not crossing households. The phrases that they use. But I hear your point. Something to consider. Anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm wondering if government has thought through the long-term, maybe unintended consequences of this lockdown, such as U.S. dollars stop flowing into our country. People that buy food, the big grocers and the hardware people that need U.S. dollars to buy the food we eat and the things we use, when those dollars start running out, what's going to happen then?
All right. See, considerations, I guess. Like we talked about all of the other ramifications, including the legal. Hey, thanks so much,
Those
sir.
are part of the plan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks, sir. Mr. Jackson, let's welcome the other caller and see what other perspectives as we make notes. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for calling.
Afternoon, Dwayne.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Roger here. How are you doing? I'm going to go on a more spiritual vibe in the situation. Mine just made a point that I saw last. Sweat, heat, and salt water and sun. That's what we need. But I've been following this. I've been home now for what? I guess since it locked down most days. And listening to every news media around the world, listening to talk shows, people sending me all these videos. I'm finding some myself. And I'm saying to myself, what a big puzzle this is. And I'm trying to put it together. And I feel a little bit now oppressed in my own country. I feel like I'm in a communist country for a while here. But remember now, COVID-19 started in a communist country, And it missed Shanghai in Beijing, but it went all over the rest of the world. You pick and hit all the economical parts of the world. Isn't that strange? And I've been watching things in the States with Donald Trump not wearing no mask. He's not wearing it. That tells me that he must have the vaccine. Because I saw the news a few days ago, or a couple of weeks ago actually, You know, you're watching the news, you got it writing on the bottom of the TV that China will have the vaccine ready for January. I don't know if anybody else saw that, but I saw it. So this is all part of Bible. This is part of Bible prophecy, and this is nothing to do with China nor United States. This is Bible prophecy. That's coming to pass. The Bible is coming to pass. Revelation 18, read that. I already made you read Isaiah 56, 9, 10, 11, 12, tell you who politicians are. If you read the Bible, First Kings, Second Kings, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, it shows the history of that. So we just go into a historical moment. And the man was just talking about food or something. Well, we had the disasters, we had the plagues, we're still getting more disasters, more plagues every day. Now we hit the diseases. What's next doing? Not a famine? Let's be careful. I think everybody needs to get close to the Almighty. That's what I think we need to do. Because at the end of the day, thy will be done. And have a good day, doing. Take care. I don't hold you too long.
All right, thank you. And Sami, thanks for sharing. We'll just take one more caller in the queue.
Sure.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hello.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to Mr. Sami. Good afternoon, sir. I would just say, Mr. Sami, it's been a pleasure listening to you for the last, I think, about 20 minutes that I've heard you. I don't know how long you've been on, but your voice needs to come out more. And you need to weigh in on the many, many issues that it's affecting us in Cayman. You know, we learn when people like you come on, when Dr. Steve comes on, Mr. Roy, and Gilbert, and Teresa, and others. Our people in Cayman that are the leading people with knowledge and can explain things need to come out more in the public forum and express your opinions on things, because we all learn. Now, having said that, some of what you're talking about, in my mind, really goes back to the lawless Caymanas, where we have here, let's go back not much further. Let's go back to let's go back, let's make a big jump back. Let's go back to the prescription law, which is the 1832 law, about you use a pathway for 20 years or more, and then you have that in perpetuity forever for life. And so you have a government. Indefeasible rights. Indefeasible rights. Okay, can't be taken away from you. And it's there forever. That's right. And then you have a government that has a law under the registered land law, makes a provision for the registration of rights acquired through the prescription law. And then you have a government that fights against you and goes to court, and they then say that access to the beaches is not in the public interest in the Cayman Islands. And so they give you a little pittance of a legal aid, and then they take it away. And it's part of the lawlessness. You have registered right-of-ways moving all over the place. Now, let us move on from that. Mm-hmm. We have a constitution, 2009, which had a provision for referendum. And like many things in the Constitution, to give effect to it, you have to have laws for that particular purpose. You have election specified in there and lots of other things. Exactly. And then, but in the revision process of the Constitution, since 2009, the concept was that any revision to the Constitution really should be. But then they took that away when the discussions were going on, was that any change would have to come back to the people. There have been 3 changes to the Constitution since, without any widespread public involvement. You talked about, and rightly so, about a developing police state that can happen under your nose, and our people don't realize what's going on. The same thing is happening here. You have a legislative assembly that hardly meets. When it meets, it goes till 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever time. Some might be exactly 2, but very late at night. There's no public discussions and open discussions of the many things affecting our island. There's no participatory democracy anymore.
Couldn't agree more.
It's like government is occurring in a mirrored room. And so all the government is seeing is themselves or the 1 or 2 special interest people that they put in. Just look at some of the committees that they have even now.
Thank you.
It's just mirrored rooms, and you're seeing the same people try and do the same thing. And it's not involving the wider public, the wider electorate. It's just the special interest people that are running the island. And we're in a frightening situation. They have brought down the 12 Northern Ireland enforcers to come down here now. That'll be 150. They're forming this battalion brigade. Well, first, all of them they talk about, niceties about, is to do for hurricane. And then after a while, they tell you, no, this is for security. Sandhurst College doesn't train people on how to take care of sick people. Okay? Sandhurst trains people to kill. And that's where we're sending our people to learn. And we see here what has happened with freedom of information. Those things that are supposed to be for democracy, to support democracy, all combined into one. They try to remove the voice from the democratic building institution. Last year, we never even had a Constitution Commission for a while. The National Pensions Office in 2018, they failed to appoint a board, again, to look after the people's money. The law says Section 85 is supposed to produce an annual report. The last one submitted to the Legislative Assembly was 2007 and 8. When the board submitted them when I was there, they wanted us to rewrite them because it told the truth of the way government has overseen the degradation of the function of pensions in our island.
Mm-hmm.
The 2007 report that was written by Mercer has been ignored. 10% isn't going to fund you any more than about 10 years. 10% is 1/10. So if you're putting money away to function, to help you to live in your retirement years, well then you need to put away more than that, because 1/10, as you accumulate, is not going to fund your income for 10 years. And they were told that, and they know it. It's straight mathematics. But they won't increase it because they hold our people down with low wages, stagnation of wages. And it all starts with a minimum wage, which holds it down.
Yes, sir.
And then I want to touch on, before I leave, sir, and I want you to consider when you're talking about the human rights aspect of it, there doesn't seem to be any overall plan of who is going to get assistance, like other countries have done. It's very ad hoc. All of a sudden, you heard the other night, at one of the press conferences, oh, we're going to add musicians to it. Define a musician. I pick up the guitar too, but I don't mean I can really strum a tune. And so what makes a musician to get $1,000? Does he have to have a business license as an entertainer? Does he have to be a member of the music association thing that they have? What's the criteria? And it's the same thing with the whole way the criteria. It's all a big mystery. It involves politicians phoning up the department at NAU and tell you what you're supposed to do. And we are on a dangerous path of diminishing democracy. And so they've given people money to support them, which they will need. But then a certain group of people, they've said that when they started with this terrible law that they did to devastate pensions. They said it was $750 a month or $850 they were going to give the unemployed. And then that got expanded to where everybody can raise their pension, whether you're employed or unemployed. So it's no rationale, no proper procedure, no common sense to it, except if your intention is to destroy private sector pensions, and I think between some of the opposition and the government statement seems to be they're going to destroy pensions, and because developers have not paid their way because of the special deal to get apartments and all that kind of stuff, they now haven't collected the duties. They've subsidized. Corporate subsidies are called incentives, but they're still a subsidy. And now they don't have the money for infrastructure, so they're going to introduce a tax, call it Social Security. It's an income tax, and then take the money from that, and I even heard give them a 0.5%. Give them a 0.5%, and then they're going to take that money and use that to build infrastructure. So where the money going to be for the people when they retire? The Lord help our great-grandchildren, because they can't defend themselves because they're not born yet. So I would want to find out from you, sir, do you believe that is a violation of human rights 16 and 19 of the Constitution for them to select a group? They have some discriminate and give some group benefit without them having to give up anything. Then you have another group, in order for them to survive, they have to give up their pensions, their savings for the future. And yet still, if they really wanted to help the most hardship people, foreign domestics in this country, which are something, according to the Premier, 5,000 of them, those people, by the law, were discriminated against, and they don't have to have pensions. So how are they living? Those 5,000 are just waiting for a chance to get back to work, that are paid $6 or $4 or whatever they get away with paying them. You know, these are fundamental things. I don't know about you, Mr. Jackson, but if you could, am I seeing things that are not there? Am I making up things?
I'm listening to you intently because I think, by and large, you're hitting the nails on the head. To answer your question, any discriminatory action, and discrimination can take many forms as defined by Section 16 of the Bill of Rights. Any discriminatory action by government in respect of any other rights given under the Bill of Rights is a breach of Section 16. You have a right to not be discriminated against by the government as regards your rights. If that includes rights to property, rights to privacy, rights to life, whatever, right? We've had case law on that recently, and I can tell you that in the very near future, unless government somehow comes to its senses in regards to other matters, that there's going to be a proper due ventilation of all of those issues before the courts of the Cayman Islands, and we will then have the benefit of some judicial guidance in that regard. Because you are right, your term, the diminishing democratic society, that is exactly what is happening here, and that is what is the nub of it for me. That sitting there listening, and I have to be honest, I haven't listened to all of the press releases lately, the public briefings or whatever they're called. But what I know is there's two representatives of cabinet there, for the most part, and the commissioner of police, because he's an important part of our governance now, and the governor, who by and large sounds very sensible to me, although he hasn't exercised his powers under Section 21 to declare a state of emergency, which would require him to then make regulations which would have to be proportionate, I presume, and in accordance with what the mother country has done, which would be a blessing because they are much better, much more balanced, much more proportionate, much more sensible, and they set out a plan for a temporary path for the governance of the country, for the benefit of the people. You can't be saying that you're benefiting people. It's like, sinking a boat so it doesn't run ashore. That doesn't help. That avoids one problem and creates a much more catastrophic one. If we continue down the path we are going and we lose all sight of the democratic process, the legislative process, proper due governance, open, transparent communication between government and the people that elected them, then we are moving the needle towards that, microcosm of China that I spoke of earlier. This is what we need to avoid here, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I'm not here. I have no expertise whatsoever with regards to coronavirus or any other virus. All I know is what I read, and there's so much stuff out there now that you really got to be just scratching your head. That's part of the problem. That adds, I believe, to the mental strain of people who are locked up. Reading that all day long, not knowing how to interpret it, trying to weigh this thing against that thing to make some sense of it all. And I honestly fear coming out of this lockdown, whenever that is, right? Because that's the other part. That's another part of it. What, our mindset might be. I worry about what, the ordinary Caymanian might think, what their mental health. Those sorts of things have to be taken into account too. And if you're constantly feeding them fear of death the minute that somebody doesn't wear their mask or they look like they're getting too close, or they're walking a dog on the beach instead of on a narrower sidewalk, that the whole world will come to an end. If you constantly feed fear, you're doing exactly what Adolf Hitler did in the 1930s Germany. You are creating a state of mass mental fear where you can control them as you see fit. And that you don't need to look any further than the fact that it is constantly reported in these press briefings that this is what I have decided. No one knows what the process is. No one knows who's involved in the decision-making process. We know one thing. There is no legislative process now. Even though we know they're meant to pass other legislation, why not have a proper debate in Parliament about what measures are proportionate, what measures are rational, how to deal with these things practically? Get rid of this whole idea of a police curfew, which is clearly beyond the bounds of the law, and it's something we don't want to embrace. We simply don't want to have a state where the primary person in politics, in a government, right, the prime minister, premier, or whatever, can tell the commissioner of police what to do with regards to people of the country. That's a recipe for disaster. That is the stock in trade of a totalitarian regime. That's not what I signed up for. That's not what I lived here all these years. We've been through disasters before, albeit none that have been as protracted as this one. But what if we are contributing to the protraction of this crisis? What if the real crisis coming out of this isn't that people died? And I get it. It's easy to say that, we locked the whole country down and nobody died. So, well, actually, patient zero died. And we don't need to get into the discussion about how he got here, do we? And infected a hospital, because everyone seems to have conveniently forgotten about that. But we are definitely being dictated to. We are being told what we can do. And by and large, a lot of people are accepting that blindly now because they think to do otherwise would put them in danger. And that's wrong. That is wrong. That is not what you should do to your people if you care about them, right? In my humble opinion. And I know we've strayed from the legal perspective now, but this all goes to inform how government should make rational, balanced, proportionate decisions. That's what the Constitution expects. Even the governor, when he exercises if he ever were to exercise his power under the emergency provisions in the Constitution, he's subject to Section 19(1). His decisions must be lawful, rational, proportionate, and procedurally fair. So why are we just ignoring all that for the sake of what? Convenience? Why? Is it necessary to tear up our Constitution and throw it away just because we deal with it? Even though the Constitution itself provides for matters to be dealt with in an emergency, all shape and form of emergency. Why are we doing that?
But okay, Samuel, so let's pick that up after we come back from the break. And maybe those are the kind of considerations that we need to look at. All right, when we come back, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Do you want to shop online at A.L. Thompson's? You can. We offer goods that you need now for your home and yard. Visit our website for details and register to shop. Currently, we sell only the items that are on the website, but we'll add products regularly and frequently to meet your needs. You could pay for your order by debit card, credit card, and store accounts. We have contact-free delivery, will not enter households, and will maintain social distance for everyone's safety. We hope that you'll enjoy shopping online at althompson.com. Please remain healthy and safe.
Wow, looks good. What is that?
Chicken chair.
What did you just say to me?
Chicken chair.
I am not a chicken.
Whoa! I said chicken share. It's from KFC. Bucket of 12 hot wings, 6 pieces of chicken, or 8 tenders. KFC chicken share. Just $12 each.
Oh.
Want some chicken, tenders, or hot wings?
You're sharing your chicken share with me?
The new chicken share from KFC, just $12 each, and it's finger licking good. Dine at KFC Baytown Plaza, KFC Shedden Road, or KFC at the Strand.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Social distancing. Well, that means you're to keep a distance of 3 to 6 feet away from the person next to you. Or in layman's term, if you can see the color of the eye next to you, you're too close. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
Funky Tank's Shedden Road location is now open for deliveries, Monday to Saturday,
8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Call 949-0998, WhatsApp 916-0568, or email markw_ft@hotmail.com.
Funky Tanks is your music and more store.
Shedden Road location now open for deliveries, Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Stay safe and stay home, Cayman.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Obey the laws and wear the gauze. Protect your jaws from septic paws. Stay clean, Cayman, with hand sanitizer from $3.25, 10 surgical masks for $9.99, and 2 packs of KN95 masks for $6.99. Wholesale pricing available at all 5 Liquor for Less locations: Shedden Road, North Church Street, Savannah, Northside, and the McClendon Drive Airport location. Don't miss the incredible lockdown price markdown and manager specials exclusively at Liquor for Less. Hundreds of fine starting from cases of ice cold below wholesale prices, and save $9 off liters. Prices so low we can't say it on the radio. Liquor for Less enforces the wearing of masks and social distancing while in store and encourage other preventative measures to help stop the spread of COVID-19, such as consistent hand washing and only leaving home for essential purposes.
With no vaccine, with no cure, our current solution is keeping our distance and staying at home. We stay at home to keep safe, to reduce harm to others. We stay apart while out and about. Space between life and death. We keep our distance 6 feet apart because 6 feet apart is better than 6 feet below. We stay at home because it takes upwards of 40 nurses, doctors, laboratory technicians, housekeepers to care for one COVID-19 patient. Diagnosis, intubation, extubation to full recovery. 40 healthcare professionals and their families at risk while taking care of one COVID-19 patient. Breathe easy. Keep your distance. Stay home. Don't risk you. Don't risk others. This is Rotary Central saying, live to breathe to live, because breathing is everything.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Essential staff, police officers, immigration, customs, doctors, nurses, first responders, they are essential staff. So if you got to ask, then you ain't. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening and calling. Special thanks to our guest, Attorney at Law, J. Samuel Jackson. Samuel, thanks, man, for giving us insight. For what it's worth, a number of our listeners have sent through messages saying, they're glad to get a perspective, like the caller prior who was offering up, the encouragement to share your perspective. So thanks very much. Now, as we went to the break, you were weighing in with some points. We're going to take the next break just before 2 for our news break, but we can talk until then.
All right, thank you, Dwayne. Well, look, we all have our personal opinions about what is appropriate, what isn't appropriate. That is actually at the very heart of the matter as far as I'm concerned, because the only how we can, as a free democratic society, determine what is best for the people is if we go through the process that has been defined and put in place by the Constitution, which is the parliamentary process. And I go back to that again because I think that's important. Again, I'm not advocating to open up the economy, throw the floodgates open. That is not my job to determine whether that's appropriate or not. I have my own personal views about specific aspects of this lockdown, in terms of how effective they might be, whether they're commonsensical or not, those sorts of things. But what I'm here today to discuss is the legitimacy, the process by which we have operated under since this curfew was initially put in place. So we have the curfew dictating certain things, and we have the public health regulations, coronavirus regulations, dictating other things like the closing of certain businesses, who is essential, etc. We've all heard the ads. But what we haven't done is to create a law, which is what Section 13 expects, a law and we have had time for that now, to dictate on a temporary basis for as long as Parliament determines is appropriate what measures should be put in place. Now, you can leave some of the things to be determined by Cabinet, right? I don't even know if there's a Cabinet process. I simply don't know. I assume there is. But even that, right, that's the executive arm of the government deciding on a daily basis. And by what should be put in place. Even in ordinary circumstances, that should not work. Whenever you're dealing with fundamental rights of individuals, the Cabinet the political director of the country shouldn't be able to sit in a closed room, make decisions about things that affect the rights of people behind closed doors without the people knowing what the rationale is, etc., especially if they're not willing to share that. Why is that? There's many very good reasons for that, but the simple one is, if you're an open democratic society, you should be able to see and hear your representative, whether he's in government or not, on the floor of LA, taking his position, making his contribution, and at the end of the day, that informs and creates the legislative process that produces then a law, right? And that law needs to conform to the Constitution. But what we've done here is we use one law that pre-existed the Constitution, which has a very draconian curfew provision in it, but on the face of it, can only last for 48 hours. We've abused that, so to speak, from what I've seen, by creating continuous curfews, hard and soft curfews. The Sunday curfew is the one that personally gets to me, because traditionally Sundays were the quietest day in Cayman, and I don't know why Sundays. I've heard some of the rationale put forward, but it doesn't make sense to me why Sundays need to be a complete lockdown day, hard curfew day, because apparently everybody would go crazy on Sunday and infect each other. I don't know, but this is part of the problem. None of us really know. We're being told what to do. We're not being explained why it's being put in place. The government representatives show up at the press briefings. They read off. They have a prayer. They read off the latest statistics. They explain what measures will be relaxed, what measures might be enhanced, and that sort of thing. And by and large, it starts to really feel dictatorial, right? Forget about the personalities involved. That's a different discussion for a different day. But just the process which we've employed.
If I then could ask you then.
Itself a free, open, democratic society. And by no far stretch of my imagination can I agree that this is what is reasonably justifiable in a democratic society. You can't say that. So it doesn't meet the requirement that Section 13 puts forward to interfere with the guaranteed freedom of movement of people in the country. That's a problem. Because government needs to keep the eye on that, because if at some point they interfere with the wrong person and they sue them, they file a petition under Section 26 or something like that, go to the courts, right, and prove. But what I'm saying is the legal position. And they appeal it, they'll probably appeal it all the way to the Privy Council at great expense to the public purse. There might very well then be dealing with a precedent that has serious implications, and it leaves them with a big black eye, because these are valid points that no one has actually addressed. Everyone assumes that because the message is we are genuinely looking out for you, and no one is challenging that. But you know what? I need you to look out for me as a citizen to protect me from a disease, a communicable disease. I need you to look out for me as a citizen to protect me from you encroaching on my rights.
Yeah. If I may ask then, we still, the UK has not suspended our constitution. There's not been a state of emergency imposed. We still presumably have a functioning legislative assembly.
There's actually no basis for it, and that might be thanks to the lockdown. We don't know. I'm sure the government will say that thanks to the lockdown, we've abated the spread of the disease. As far as we know, we've tested 800 people or something. I don't even know what the number is, but we've tested, let's just say, hundreds of people, and we have a good idea of what the infection rate is, but we don't know for sure. We don't know if people were infected before, because there's no antibody test available yet. It affected early in the year. We don't know.
We're told that for the press briefing there was some 4,000 plus yesterday, and what the rate was and the like, and a couple of hundred a day. But then our legislative assembly, not to sort of ignore them, but not to cast any negative light on them, but they're duly elected. Presumably, they're still part and parcel of the governance structure. With the greatest respect, we're hearing very little from the majority of the politicians, in particular the opposition or the non-government sort of section. I
think there's an answer for that, and part of this might be just conjecture, but part of it is knowing the folks involved and knowing how seeing the lay of the land where people are viciously attacked for doing anything to that seems to be intended to spoke the wheels of the Premier's Save Cayman campaign. I think that, and I don't mean to disparage anyone, I think that a lot of politicians, as they often have to take the politically expedient position. And insofar as the opposition is concerned, they haven't been given the ability. Well, they went down to Parliament to discuss specific bills. I don't know why someone didn't make the point that we should actually implement proper, meaningful legislation in accordance with Section 13. I have no idea why that wasn't done. I'm not making excuses for anyone. Whoever has failed in that regard will have to take the blame for it if they did it, whatever their motivation was. But you know what? I'm not a politician, and I hope I never have to be one, to be quite frank and honest. Certainly not in this type of environment. And I don't need to earn brownie points from anyone. I come here to say what my perspective is on this matter. For whoever wants to listen to it, if it's 2 people, 200 people, it matters not to me. I've spoken my piece. Mr. Billy said earlier I should speak up more. I would. I actually would. But of late, I've been very busy defending my own interests, so to speak, with regards to other things that the government has done. And that is not to say that what I'm doing today is politically motivated, but to be fair and honest, if I hadn't been provoked to look at the Constitution in depth, I wouldn't be as au fait with the provisions as I am now, because constitutional law wasn't something that I did as part of my practice, right? But trust you me, Dwayne, I've been through it a lot, thoroughly, lately, for the past 6 months, right? I've been studying it, and I've written opinions on it, and drafted documents based on it, etc. So when this crisis occurred, I decided deliberately that I would stay my hand, keep my mouth shut, and watch what happened with regards, because I understood that we were genuinely facing a crisis of unprecedented proportion. And I believed at that time, I can say hand on heart, I think that the Premier and everybody else was trying to do the right thing. And they had to use the tools they were given. They've had ample time now to get it right, and they haven't. And what I worry about is this notion that, and I have no problem with the Commissioner of Police. I think he's one of the best ones we've had, to be honest, right? He certainly gives that impression that he's an open-minded, reasonable individual. But constitutionally, he's not elected to lead us. He's not elected to tell us what we can do. His remit over us only occurs when we commit a crime. And we've committed no crime here, but yet we've been locked up. And to Mr. Billy's point earlier, and the other gentleman's point, why can't we protect the people who need protecting? Because we know now, those of us who want to listen to something else other than the rhetoric on CNN, right, about all the people that dropping dead and they're filling up freezer trucks in New York. If we look at the numbers, right, we look at the actual data. Even Italy, I think it was something like 81% of the people that died there were over 80 years old. And we know this, right? And I'm not saying we should just not worry about it because of that. No, we should do the opposite. We should protect those people who need protecting. Because I happen to know, this is the other thing that troubles me from a personal perspective. The folks who have been tested positive are being asked to self-quarantine. That is a new thing. That comes from a practice in other countries where they simply don't have the capacity to quarantine, several thousand people at one point in time. But we certainly do. We must have the ability to quarantine them, or at least guard them, or impose severe sanctions on them if they breach. And I know one particular person who recently his spouse was tested positive and he was seen in public, right? So why is that? Why are we punishing everybody equally, even if not punishing, but we're restricting everyone equally, right?
Right.
When we now have the ability to test people, we know who's infected, who isn't. Or once we know that they're infected, we protect the public, protect them from themselves and from
and the public from them.
The public.
Yeah, but if I may ask you though, we heard the Honorable Premier share at a press briefing. I believe it was him, but it was shared at the press briefing that in response to a question about some of the flights that were returning, there wouldn't be anybody else coming back because we didn't have the capacity to put any more people in quarantine or isolation or to house them. So they were not going to bring back. At one of the press briefings of late, that was something that was shared. Presumably they have probably reworked that because there's some other flights after. So there
That
was
might
a
be a real
capacity issue.
problem. I don't know. I just
Yeah,
don't know. That's part of the problem too. We don't know.
yeah. So are you sharing, maybe the question that people have in relation to timely, accurate information and the like? We have the news break coming up. Could we invite you to remain with us? Look at some of the local law, the UK law, and the like,
Sure.
and give us a perspective. All right. When we come back from the break, we'll continue our discussion as we look at this thing from the legal perspective of attorney at law, J. Samuel Jackson.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Shelter in place. Stay home. Stay out of Johnny Public. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news.
Access.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
There are still a small number of seats available for the upcoming emergency evacuation flight to Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, which is leaving on Sunday, May 17th. If you need a seat on that flight, you're encouraged to call Cayman Airways directly on 949-2311. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, 2 babies and 11 mothers and nurses have been killed in a militant attack on a hospital in the Afghan capital. Another 15 people, including a number of children, were injured when several gunmen attacked the Kabul hospital this morning. Meanwhile, in the east, an attack at a police funeral has killed at least 24. And a law firm used by A-list stars including Rod Stewart, Lil Nas X, and Robert De Niro has been hacked. The website for Grubman, Shia Misalas, and Sachs is down, and hackers claim to have 756 gigabytes of data, including contracts and personal emails. A screenshot allegedly of a Madonna contract has been released, and the criminals are demanding payment. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up-to-date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
The RCIPS, National Drug Council, and Radio Cayman are reminding you to stay home, refrain from social gatherings, and having parties during soft and hard curfew. Do your part, limit alcohol consumption, or stay sober. Do not undermine your immune system and health by misusing alcohol or any other substance. Remember, we are all in this together. Stay safe, stay home, stay alive, Cayman.
Funky Tank's Shen Road location is now open for deliveries, Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Call 949-0998, WhatsApp 916-0568, or email markw_ft@hotmail.com. Funky Tanks is your music and more store. Shen Road location now open for deliveries, Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Stay safe and stay home, Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And certainly if you want to be a part of our discussion, 949-8037. Or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. Got an opportunity to continue the discussion. Remember, there is no news briefing, press briefing this afternoon. Start back tomorrow. Well, the excellent company of Attorney at Law J. Samuel Jackson is our guest. Samuel, thanks very much for enlightening us with your legal perspective. So,
sure.
Go
ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to ask you about but if in case if you want to say something before we get into asking you about the local law and the UK perspective, because it is the mother country. What are they doing? What are we doing? How do the two compare and the like?
Yeah, I've taken a brief look. I haven't gone in depth in terms of section by section, line by line, but I've looked through the Prevention, Control, and Suppression of COVID-19 Regulations 2020, which is the regulations that our government passed the other day under the public health law. And like I said earlier, those things provide for things like closure of public places, public meetings, exemptions, prohibitions on holding public meetings, and restrictions on certain types of activities, and they've actually been painfully listed. Purpose of preventing, control, and suppression is spread of virus, no person shall host or attend a private party, etc., etc., etc. So that's what that does. But this legislation, curiously enough, did not attempt to do anything with regards to those things controlled by the curfew. That are still controlled by the curfew, i.e. the hard curfew ban on Sundays, the hard curfew ban at nights, the beach ban, etc., which is causing some grief for a number of folks. But to revert to what I said earlier, it would have been, to me, logical if the government had, presumably it has the support of the opposition, if the government had got together with the opposition and quickly agreed legislation, so you don't have to have any protracted debate, except for any comments that or statements that any of the members wanted to make during the legislative process. If they had done taken a wholesale approach and created a law, preferably, to deal with COVID-19 restrictions, and it was fully ventilated down there in the LA that everybody could get to hear what their representative contributed to that, what position they took, and had a contribution, because all indications are that they really didn't. If these are regulations, these were passed in cabinet, right? Unlike the public health England regulations, the health protection coronavirus restrictions England, and the UK seems to have dealt with this country by country. Scotland has their own rules, Wales their own, England their own, etc. But as I said earlier, curiously, these regulations that were passed in the UK were tabled before Parliament. It says so on the face of it. And it contains in the preamble a statement that the Secretary of State considers the restrictions and requirements imposed by these regulations are proportionate to what they seek to achieve, which is a public health response to the threat. That's the proper way to do it, right? Now, these regulations are wholesale or fulsome in terms of they provide everything necessary, I believe, in regards to England's form of coronavirus lockdown. I'm not saying that this is the most efficient way. I have no way of knowing that, or this deals, with things that need all things that need to be dealt with appropriately. That's beyond the scope of my expertise. But I can tell you this: when you look at it, it's a much more balanced piece of legislation, right? It creates the provision similar to the Cayman regulations that talk about closure of public places, but it does it a more general sense. It has provisions for restrictions and gatherings, and that's curious enough. That's one of the things that's sadly lacking here. In that, I have had people contact me to say, "What do I do? I have parents close by who are elderly or sick. They need treatment, but I can't get to them. Sometimes they call me at night, and now they're not even calling me because they don't want me to get in trouble. How do I deal with that?" And my advice to them was, well, see if you can get an exemption to the hard curfew, and laid out what I don't know whether that enjoyed any success or not, but this is the kind of hardship that is caused when you have a totalitarian regime in the sense that it's black and white. There's a ban, and the only how you can get an exemption is you write to the police and get an exemption. Think about that for a second. Whereas the English regulations talk about anyone found outside their home or premises without reasonable excuse, which is the language you typically use in laws. So when you're approached by a relevant enforcement officer, and they've expanded it beyond, this is something else the Cayman should have considered, because there's lots of special constables and other civil servants out there who aren't really working now, although they're probably getting paid as far as I know, who could be co-opted into this to help manage social distancing if the public were allowed to out for exercise. But this specific provision I'm talking about says during an emergency period, no person may participate in gathering in a public place of more than 2 people, except where all the persons in the gathering are members of the same household, where the gathering is essentially for work purposes. That's surprising, because that's pretty wide. To attend a funeral, where reasonably necessary to facilitate a house move or to provide care or assistance to a vulnerable person, including relevant personal care within the meaning of paragraph 7b, and they define what that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and to provide emergency assistance. So if you do any of those, to participate in legal proceedings or fulfill a legal obligation, do any of those things, you are not restricted in terms of public gatherings. When you go on to look at enforcement of requirements under the law, under the regulations, it sets out a regime where an authorized person is what they call all of the people who have been co-opted into this, including constables, where they approach someone who they suspect is in breach of the lockdown restrictions, and they tell them to go home, and that person refuses to go home, then they impose a fixed penalty fine by way of a fixed penalty notice. That's typically what they do. And that fixed penalty, coincidentally, is £60 sterling.
60 pounds.
60 pounds, 60 pounds sterling. If you pay that within 14 days, it's cut in half to £30. So you're talking about proportionality, right? Just the process alone, because it's a fixed penalty, so you get to pay it and it's done, right? And, and you can be obviously fined over and over, and it goes up. If you continue to offend, it goes up to a maximum of £990 sterling or something like that. So if you're a repeat offender, then you keep getting fined. And if you refuse to cooperate, then they can obviously arrest you and move you. And all of that is defined nicely in their regulations, very clearly set out. We don't have that here. We have a police regime where the police are left to decide how they police the curfew, because it's a curfew, right?
Which itself is, as you shared, something.
And a breach of that requires prosecution. And a fine of, we keep hearing $1,500, $1,000, $3,000 in some instances if it's a hard curfew. Bearing in mind, a hard curfew isn't really even defined by law. That's just a recent invention, right? A curfew is a curfew. A curfew under Section 49 of the police law is an order by the police commissioner to remain inside your premises, full stop. You can be exempted by the officer in charge of the curfew. So it has a provision there for that, but it does not create a regime where you can impose conditions to say that if you're doing this, you're excused. If you're doing that, you're excused. We don't have that in our law. Our law is not that advanced, our police law. And nor does it need to be, because remember now, a curfew is not what has been imposed in other countries. It's a lockdown mechanism, regime, which is created by law, temporarily, to deal with COVID-19, the spread of COVID-19. We have none of that. We utilizing archaic legislation and abusing it to lock people up. And I have a problem with that. Because once a government is allowed to do that, where does it stop? We keep often hearing politicians talking about, we're a land of laws. We have many laws. We have so many laws that we forget to follow them. That's the problem. And what's the purpose? You come to a conclusion where you ask yourself, well, what's the purpose of having laws, lawyers, or lawmakers if we could just print them and then follow them?
Yeah. We have another caller online. Let's join that caller. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for calling.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Very thankful. Very blessed.
Okay. I'll share a little bit of humor with you. Recently, when people have been calling me and asking me how I'm doing, I said, well, I think I'm getting ready for Ward 8. So I don't know if you know what Ward 8 is, but I'll leave you to figure that one out.
Some TV show reference, right?
Okay.
Some TV show reference, I believe.
And you can call me offline. I'll tell you what it is.
There you go.
But anyway, let me confess, first of all, I did not catch your show from the beginning, but for the bit that I've been hearing, I have a question from Mr. Jackson, and this is by no means, anyway, a confrontation. But as opposed to whether it's shelter at home, curfew, lockdown, soft or hard, what would, and I'll ask the questions, he can respond to me afterwards, but what would he, if he were the premier and the governor, what would he have put in place? And in the absence of military, we only have the police. So who would be the persons then to make sure that whatever laws or conditions, I'm going to say, that have been put in place as a result of the coronavirus, who then should make sure that these are followed? And I know he did not say this, but I heard a caller, someone called in and said that why don't they quarantine the elderly and the vulnerable and let the rest of the people out? Now, if they're talking about abusing a person's human rights, I would say that's a fine example, because in that instance, why don't you suggest then that they test everyone on island, find out who is positive, and those who are positive, quarantine them, which is something I've been advocating for from the beginning. I mean, that makes sense. Why punish the elderly and the vulnerable? I mean, they're already the ones who are suffering from this the most in every way, Why would you want to inflict that kind of punishment on them? So, I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that this whole process has been a walk in the park. But at the same time, in the absence of any warning to have, put a plan in place, I don't know what else should be done. But if somebody has a better idea or has sat down at the table and come up with a better solution than what's happening right now, I would be more than happy to hear that. But what I really don't think is fair, and I mean, I am not a lawyer, but what I don't think is fair is to criticize now and say that people's human rights are being trampled on. Because what I cannot help but notice is that when something is happening, as it happens all the time, and even long before coronavirus came around, that Caymanians' human rights are trampled on every single day in this country, yet no one gets up and speaks on behalf of the Caymanians. It seems like that's okay because it's only happening to Caymanians. But then as soon as something happens that it affects everybody else, then suddenly human rights are being trampled on. So, I have discussions with people all the time. Obviously, not everyone is going to call a talk show or make a comment on Facebook or, call their representative and say, this is how I feel or this is what I would like or whatever the case might be. I'm not a bashful person and I ain't going to win a popularity contest, so I ain't competing for any. But, as I have listened and I have read, I have had to actually take a break from a lot of this because that in itself, and I'm speaking about everything concerning the virus, it's very draining. And, you're confused because you read this by this doctor and you read this by that doctor. And, look at what's happening at the White House. The president and the vice president are dictating that people should do this and should do that. But the various things they're dictating that should be done, they refuse to do it. I always believe you should lead by example. And I'm going to go back to where I started. I'm wondering what else could be done or should be done as opposed to what's being done right now.
Well, I'd explained that before, ma'am, that what should have been done, in my humble opinion, was that we passed legislation, right? New legislation dealing with, and we've done that to some extent. We've passed regulations which deal with specifying who are exempted and that sort of thing and banning public gatherings. But we didn't deal with all of the things that we are all of the restrictions that have been placed on us. And my main grievance is with this police state sort of approach to with regards to curfew. There are better ways. I would never purport to say that I know better than the premier. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. I recognize all of that. What I'm simply saying is you cannot have a situation where there is a part of the lockdown provisions are in regulation form, and the other part is a completely, I think, disproportionate, irrational, and quite possibly illegal curfew imposed by the Commission of Police. Whether that's at the direction of the Premier or not, it doesn't matter. In fact, it only matters in that if it is, then that's probably worse. What we should have done by now is pass proper legislation, had the relevant debate in the LA the other day about it. We passed other legislation that we deemed was important. Why not this? Why not debate the full raft of things that we have had imposed on us? Pass a piece of legislation that dealt with it, and then be done with it. Make sure that it's compliant with the Constitution, because that's an important part of the process. So my complaint isn't about so much about what has been done, but how it has been done. And I'm not worried about what so much the state of affairs are today, but what it means for the future.
Okay. All right, well, let's pause quickly and take the final break. Very short. When we come back, we'll talk today.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Fluff and Fold in Camana Bay is open. You've been carrying a heavy load for some time. Take a break and let Fluff and Fold carry the load. dry cleaning and wash and fold laundry service with all necessary measures to ensure the safety of our staff and customers. Contact free pickup and drop off at their Camana Bay location. Give yourself a little bit of freedom. Fluff and Fold in Camana Bay. Open 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
For more information, call Fluff and Fold at 943-5833.
Obey the laws and wear the gauze. Protect your jaws from septic paws. Stay clean, Cayman, with hand sanitizer from $3.25, 10 surgical masks for $9.99, and 2 packs of KN95 masks for $6.99. Wholesale pricing available at all 5 Liquor for Less locations: Shedden Road, North Church Street, Savannah, Northside, and the McClendon Drive Airport location. Don't miss the incredible lockdown price markdown and manager specials exclusively at Liquor for Less. Hundreds of fine, starting from cases of ice cold below wholesale prices, and save $9 off liters. Prices so low we can't say it on the radio. Liquor for Less enforces the wearing of masks and social distancing while in store, and encourage other preventative measures to help stop the spread of COVID-19, such as consistent hand washing and only leaving home for essential purposes.
Home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, at 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Stay home. Leave Granny alone. Darling child, I mean, we can't be visiting our old people because they're more compromised. We gotta keep them safe. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information: the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
For rejoining us as we have the opportunity to get the input and counsel from the perspective of the legal ramifications and J. Samuel Jackson, attorney at law. Samuel, we do have another caller joining us. Let's continue with some calls and go to the phones. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Hi, good afternoon, Sterling.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Sterling. This is Johan Mocktam, and good afternoon to Sammy Jackson. How's it going, Jen?
Good afternoon, Johan.
Hey, good afternoon. How about you? Yes, sir.
I just want to commend, first of all, Radio Cayman and Sterling as the host of this show for having this conversation that is very necessary, and I think demonstrates the growth and maturity that the country is going through, whereby you have a super talented and eloquent speaker and respected attorney like Mr. Jackson, who is merely raising questions and expressing what can be considered reasonable sort of concerns that I know many people are having or discussing privately. And I commend Mr. Jackson again for having the courage and the knowledge to express himself, raise these issues whilst so eloquently and professionally. And at no point has Mr. Jackson, or could it be said that he is defaming or attacking the government or being anti-government. These are conversations that are actually taking place in different quarters amongst, as I would like to call it, some of the Caymanian aristocracy, some people with real means and money, and some across the spectrum, just average Caymanians who want to better understand how we've come to this point. And just let me qualify this by saying, as a law-abiding citizen, I commend the Premier, Alden McLaughlin, the Governor, his team at the Glass House, and the Commissioner for doing what they think is best for the country, but more importantly, what is necessary in order to safeguard the, I guess, the health of the country during this public health crisis. I'm pleasantly surprised that we could be having this conversation so openly and again on national radio, because there are other radio stations that would not participate in this sort of, or radio hosts that would never allow for this sort of discussion to take place. So I think this, again, is a step in the right direction. And I just wanted to say, for anybody that is misinterpreting, the discussion as being anti-government, I don't think they appreciate just how fragile the line is between doing the right things but using the wrong reasons or tools to get there. I'll give you an example. We're now the government has gone through a Court of Appeal challenge of a judicial review matter regarding Shirley Ralston on behalf, I guess you would say, for the cruise port referendum. Now, that is another classic example whereby, because the legislature failed to effectively listen to the concerns and take their times to do things properly and enact legislation that would have been compatible with the Constitution, had they done so, there likely would not have been a judicial review application, but more importantly, public funds would not be spent for a appeal at a time when the country has so many more pressing matters. So I just throw that log on the fire because, again, it's important that people understand I have not interpreted anything that Mr. Jackson has said as being anti-establishment, anti-government, the best interest of the country. But there's a way that we do things, that we should strive to do things. And if we're going to surrender our fundamental rights in the interest of substance over process, then at what point will we have the courage to stand up and speak out when our rights are truly trampled on and the electorate are able to make up the rules as they go along? Because as much as I support the actions of the Premier and thank him for showing such steady leadership, especially at the beginning of this entire national crisis, I think at this stage, enough has gone on where we've seen the politics coming in to how decisions get made. I'll give you an example. If somebody can tell me that having liquor establishments is an essential service, then I got a bridge to sell you to Cayman Brac, because you got to have some mechanism whereby the way the rules are put together are come together based on some sort of metric whereby it is, again, rational, sensible, and in the best interest of the country. But if you're telling me, and I'm just using that as an example, there are many other examples. If you're telling me that a car wash agency can basically come and do business and so on and so forth, but something as simple as allowing people to take a 15-minute swim in the sea or walk on the beach, whereby obviously everybody, I think, understands they need to maintain social distancing. But for me, as much as I agree with everything the government has said, I don't expect perfection, but I do expect for them to put more thought and rational purpose behind the decisions that they make. And unfortunately, this administration has done too many things that just don't make sense or are done on a whim without really considering the consequences of it. As much as I want to support them, and I'm happy that I live in a country whereby, for large parts, the citizens have complied and abided with all of the things that have been asked of us. But again, just go back to this. You can tell me that a dog groomer and a car wash company and a liquor store can be open, but you can't tell me that something as natural and refreshing and good for your body of taking a dip in the sea is something that is outlawed and banned and all the rest of it. And again, I'll just say this. If the persons who abused that privilege at the beginning were just dealt with swiftly, you would have nobody else or the fear of anybody else, in my mind, abusing that system. But for them to take a broad sweeping rule and say that's it, nobody's allowed on the beach, nobody's allowed a 15-minute swim, I would give anything right now to take a 10-minute swim in the ocean. Because you can't tell me that that doesn't have medicinal and some sort of magical purpose that helps you just feel better. So that's my issue that I don't get. That's my issue that I don't get. But again, in no way, shape, or form is this conversation meant to bash the government. I think it's to ensure that they understand people are paying attention and people are exercising their rights to ask questions, and people understand that we will not allow the government to trample on our rights in the way that they have done. And if you doubt what I'm saying, they passed a referendum law that was wrong from day one, that we told them about from day one. We sent 8 letters to the Premier and Cabinet. None of them were acknowledged. Can you imagine had there been some professionalism, humility, and just relevance or seeing the need to engage with your citizens and your John public, perhaps all of these mistakes would have been avoided. And I think that is a corollary to exactly what we're talking about here. I'm not saying that I don't think the government are doing this because they're trying to live in a police state, but you cannot substitute substance over process and then think that people are just going to sit by and take it, especially when you are using hodgepodge, ad hoc sort of rules to satisfy different people, different industries, so on and so forth. I'll give you an example. We are now 6 weeks into lockdown, and I fully support it. I get it. I comply. But to date, nobody can tell me what the plan is. Nobody can really show me what the plan is. We're talking about economic recovery, but we can't see any sort of written confirmation as to what that plan looks like, who the people are that are crafting the plan. Is that a public-private partnership? Will that involve just friends of the minister, so on and so forth? These are legitimate questions that citizens are allowed to ask, are asking respectfully, and these sort of conversations are necessary for our growth, maturity, and development as a country. And again, I want to thank Sterling for having the courage to do this, Radio Cayman and Miss Norma for allowing it to happen on state-sponsored radio, and for somebody as eloquent as Sammy to come on and spend the better part of 90 minutes just going, hey, you know, Sammy said nothing wrong, nothing salacious, nothing that merits any sort of he's against us. These are legitimate questions in the way that I'm asking my legitimate questions, because I've seen my own government go into the LA and spend 3 days drafting and passing a referendum bill, but not discussing the bill, spending time to defame people, slander people, and lie. And I'm going to give you an example. The Premier, using parliamentary privilege, told the country that I was a part of a bid in 2012 for the port. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't know that I was a part of any bid until the Premier manufactured that story in order to suit his political agenda, which was accepted by every single member on the government bench, and he was protected by parliamentary privilege and allowed to do so, especially by the Speaker, who knew damn well who was involved in bids in 2012 when he was running the country, and no one said quaha. So when you see the government take 3 days to beat up on private citizens instead of being in the LA, earning their paychecks to do the right thing and to explore and examine the pieces of legislation that they're drafting that we're to be governed by, ladies and gentlemen, I can't say that I trust any of them, because they know the speech writers knew it, the members of the government and cabinet knew it, the Premier sure as hell knew it, but he took time to do that, to beat up on innocent people instead of doing his job and getting the legislation right. And if you're prepared to do that for politics, you're prepared to then basically cut and paste or do whatever it takes to suppress the rights of people. And that is where we must all draw a line, because if they can do that today, they're going to do it next week, next month,
All
next
right.
year.
Well, listen.
And Caymanians
Thanks,
need to
man.
stand up. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you too. And Samuel, we got one final call. Really appreciate everybody's opportunity and Miss Susan's. So let's take one final call. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I heard the entirety of the last caller's call, but before, I tuned in not long before he called. So I'm not 100% sure of really what the concept of your show is. But I am wondering now.
Yeah. Hello, caller. You're wondering?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just lost you there. You were wondering?
Well, what Alden did again, what he did, what going on? Because I'm hearing that the government this and the government that and the government next thing. Like I say, I just not long tuned in, so I'm not getting the full.
Yeah, we have the opportunity. I was speaking to Attorney at Law, Samuel Jackson, J. Samuel Jackson, to sort of look from the legal perspective. But perhaps I should ask Mr. Jackson a recap to look at the perspectives to the legality, proportionality. What were you sharing of the curfew and the things we promulgated or haven't?
Yeah, it's more about
so what I'm
surrounding the lockdown.
Yeah. So, yes, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. He was answering you. I don't want to speak for him. So, are you able to hear us?
Let me try to change my position because it might be something. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Jackson. Would you? So we're talking about the lockdown and why we were calling to look at it from the legal perspective. The summation and is to consider what transpiring and Sami, how would you put it best?
Well, I would say the discussion is about the legal process employed by the government to implement the lockdown and the consequent knock-on effects of that process or employing a process which isn't legal or constitutional. That's what the discussion has been about, I think, most of it.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Not so bright, not so educated, not so young. So I would have issues in this conversation here, but I don't know. I mean, I really want to stay alive, and I heard somebody complaining about going to the beach. I am complaining about that too. I want to get 2 gallons of water, bathe my mother in. She's a very sick woman. But if you say don't go, I'm not going to die without it, I don't suppose. So I'm not going. And, let me say this to Mr. Jackson. Even if I want to see what is he trying to show me, what does the government do? And I can just say Alden. What does Alden do? When every day they're talking about people congregating, doing this, doing that, doing the next thing. From Shaden Road, a couple of days ago, from Shaden Road to Smith Road, I passed 3 different gatherings of people. I would think anyway from about 6, 7, 8 people in each gathering. Just sitting down there, playing dominoes, listening to music, loud, at a time like this carrying on. As much as Arden says, as much as public health Cayman implies, as much as the rest of the world say, talk about these kinds of things. What do we do? I got an old woman taken care of who's a grandmother. I don't want her to die from this. I got grandbabies. I got nieces and nephews like 2 years old and 4 years old. How do we handle the crowd of people? So Alden don't have to say anything.
If we have laws enforceable, then we arrest anyone who, or fine them or whatever the law allows us to do, who breach those laws. What I'm hearing is, and you're not the first caller that has called in and said that the current lockdown conditions are not being followed, so they're not actually achieving the objective that they're implemented for. If that's the case, then and we've heard that one of the major justification for them is that the commissioner of police doesn't have the manpower to control the whole island. But if all of the law-abiding citizens are complying and are locked down, then I would hope that they have enough manpower to deal with those kind of infractions. And somebody should have called the police and said these folks are breaching the social distancing standards or whatever it is that they alleged to have been doing, and let the police go deal with them. Because that's actually how this work is supposed to work in the first place.
Well, Mr. Jackson and to our wonderful caller, thank you both. Kind of wish we could continue the discussion, maybe give the public a chance to engage further and maybe be enlightened. But hopefully, sir, you'll be mindful and accept an invite for us from time to time to come back on and share our perspective.
Sure.
So, thanks very much, sir. All right. And to our listeners, stay in tune, stay informed, stay grounded, and be mindful of, our ethos to think and to ask questions and to never be afraid of authority. Being civil and obedient and respectful doesn't mean you have to abdicate or, common sense. So thanks very much, each and everyone, and trust and pray that tomorrow will be a better day. Until then, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Attention all blood donors, we need a pint from you.